everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be part 3. Now you're going to have to bear with me. My plan is, please excuse my nails as well, one of my nails pinged off when I was picking Isabel up out of the wheelchair and I got frustrated and pulled the whole lot off. Anyway, I'm going to just use a very simple watercolour for the rest of the image, just to get through this a little bit quicker. And what I'll do is I'll put that in this video as a really quick time lapse, so you'll see me zoom over the whole page and then we'll come back and start the shading, because I do want to get done today. Like I said, all of the rest of the base I want to get done, and I want to get done the stars in the background, because I have to do the stars in the background before I can do the acrylic flowers. So it's gonna this video is just gonna be a mixture. It might be an hour long, but it'll be a mixture, and I'm hoping to get it finished off today, just in one video. She says that now. She says that now. But let's just get stuck in. So I think the best thing to do is I'll come back in between little bits, and then you don't get too bored. You don't get too bored. I'm using the white nights. I always forget the name of these. The white night paints. Just for all the green at the bottom there. I did that as a time lapse, and I'm going to do all the water in the mountains because I know it'll be tedious for you guys. But for the trunk of the tree, I will be using my Inktense blocks. Now I've only got a small set, so I'll use the two, well, probably that brown mixed with a bit of the grey. I'll mix it in one of the little palettes there, one of the little holes. But I'm just currently waiting for this to dry, because I know if I'm doing this bit at the top I'll lean into it. So I'm waiting for that to dry. The next bit again will be time lapsed, but it'll only be like a minute or so for you. I will whiz through it. So you just would have seen me going over all of the water. I added darkness in some areas. Now I did use a lot of water, so I have plugged in my heat gun once I've done this next part. I just want to get these mountains done. I'll do the rest of it this night in real time, and then the Inktense blocks for the trees. For the tree trunk. There's only one there. So I'm still using the same paints, just a really light mixture of colours here. Again, I just want this to be the base layer. I did do a lot of detail with the neo colours. I probably won't do a lot of shading, to be honest. Maybe just a little bit, but I am going to have to do it on these painted areas. The background, the water, I won't really have to do much there either, I don't think. Right, so there's this one, and then his hair, we need to base that with a colour as well. If my voice sounds funny today, I'm running on 2.5 hours sleep, and then I went back to bed for an hour this morning. My daughter thought it was time to start the day, and she was up at 1 o'clock till 4 this morning. So I finally got to sleep just after 4 o'clock, and then I was up just after 6 for school. So yeah, if my voice sounds funny, that's why. But I wanted to get this video filmed and up for you guys, because I know that there's been a bit of a gap between part 2 and what's going to be the final part, just in case that you were following along or that you were just curious to see what the outcome is. Now I've just thought that I should have filled that in with the same colour water, so I've used all the mix of the colour that I've used. So let's mix it again just a little bit. This might be a little bit lighter actually. Trying to be careful as well, I don't want to put my arm in the wet page. So I think that'll do. Just there as a base. It's her. I'm a little bit undecided yet, so I'll just leave the her for now, and then when it sparks to me the colour that I want, then we'll add it. So I'm going to blast this with the heat gun now. I'm more concerned about this area being dry than that, because I'm working on this area next. You would have noticed as well I didn't go over the fish. I tried my best to avoid them as much as possible, because I do want to colour them with just pencil. So that should do for now. So the tree trunk. I'm using my Inktense blocks. Got my little pipettes. I feel dead fancy using a pipette. And just pop it on the brown, and this is a grey I do believe, and then a black. But I'll pop a little bit on the green, just a little bit. Just leave that for a second and let it activate. I do like how this page is turning out. Once I've done the tree trunks, the next step is I want to get these stars done and then dry, and then I can tidy up all of the paint and the Inktense and everything and the paintbrushes, and then it's just down to the fine details. Because if I do the paint splatter of the stars last, then it's going to go over the acrylic I want to use for the flowers. Now I did get this idea from Kirsty Colour and Sketch. I noticed that she did. I don't know whether it was a blossom tree. It must have been, because it looks very similar. So yeah, I've pinched that idea from her, but I'm sure she doesn't mind. So I'll pop in a little bit of that colour in the well. See there. They take a little bit longer to activate these. And a little bit of this darker shade. But I do want it to be more of the brown. I might have to just go in straight with the brown. Let's see how we get on. Now, when I've used this before, I've used it on watercolour paper and really liked it on watercolour paper. And I've not really used it in colouring books. So I'm interested to see what it's going to be like, because I'm worried that it's going to go really streaky. So let's just get this initial colour down. I do want to colour all of this with the Inktense and not come back for the shading, but we'll see. Now, because this is ink, I'm going to have to be careful and stay in the lines, because it's not going to move this once it's dry. Apologies if you hear my pooch snoring. Rolo's having a good dream there by the sounds of it. So it's not overly pigmented, this one. Or maybe I've just not left it long enough. Maybe. Let's try it again. I'm going straight in onto the block. Well, that's a bit darker. That's better. And we've got these bits here as well. Let's put some more water on that, because I do want it darker. Looks better that second time round. I'm adding some of that black into it now as well, just to try and deepen it up a little bit more. Some more water. Now if they're anything like the pencils, I know that you have to work a little bit faster. I'm going to switch to an even smaller one. This one's a size 2. And try a bit. I think it's that colour, because look at what I've just done there. Look how pigmented that is. And I thought, oh, it's not going to be that pigmented, and rubbed it onto the brown. And you see how pigmented that one is? That is so strange that that brown one is like that. So maybe if I just... then go into some of these darker areas. See, that's working a little bit better. I don't think I left it long enough. I think that was the issue I was having. So can you see where he's already put the lines on? I just want to follow them really. See, that looks a little bit more than like what I imagined. Don't forget these trunks as well. Branches rather. Oh my man. It's funny, isn't it, when the lack of sleep, how much your brain doesn't really work. So I'll try and mix in some of these darker shades as well. Oh, that is dark. Add some of these very, very quickly and blend them out, I think. Some clean water. So I think I'll let them dry for now. Actually, I wonder what. I'm going to try some of this on the mountain as well. I'll put that initial line down where I want it and then come back. So I have to do it mega quick and blend it out and see what effect I get. Blend, 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 blend quick. That's not too bad. That looks a little bit better than that one, so I'll continue doing that actually. We've only got a few. I think I'll do it on this boulder here as well. And then clean my brush off. Blend. Blend, blend, blend. And these ones here. I think it's good using different mediums on a page, because if you're anything like me, I get bored really easily. That's why it's very, very rare for me to just use pencil on a page, because I'd soon get bored. So mixing it up with all these different things, I mean, watercolour, neo colour, now with the Intense blocks, and then with the acrylic, the paint next, acrylic paint. It's just a whole bunch. It's a mixed media page, so I need to get the paint ready and then come back. So I want to tackle these stars first, don't I? I've got one of my resin trays. I made this ages and ages and ages ago. Spur diamond painting drills in there. There's some dry paint as well in there. But for the stars, I'm using the Deco Art Americana, just white paint. I just need a tiny bit of this, and then just add plenty of water. So that blob size should do. And I've pulled out these two things. Now this is just a small cheap paintbrush that I want to use, and then this one to create bigger splatters. Now actually this is the Faber-Castell Perfection. It's got I think it's either a blender or an eraser. I think it's an eraser. Does it say? No, I think it's an eraser though on the other side. I don't use it for that. I use this. I really like it for that. So adding some water. Just wet the brush as well. Use my pipette again. Let's see how much water I'm gonna need. See, that was probably too much that I've just used. So this is the interesting part. And I nearly just spilt it on the page. That wouldn't have been good. So I'm going to pull you right up. I want to make sure that you see exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to use a cloth to protect where I want to protect. Now some of these areas are still a little bit damp, but I'm not using heavy pressure with this. I'm just laying it on, so it should be okay. I'm not too worried as well if it goes on the bird or a bit on the hair. It's fine. So with the bigger one, I'm just going to test on here. Yeah, that'll be okay. On the bigger one, I'm just using flicking motions with my hand and finger like so. I think we'll get away with just using this one and not actually the smaller one. But we'll let me check. Let's put a little bit on the smaller one. Water it down a little bit more. Yeah, so that's a little bit more delicate stars. So we'll have a mixture between the two. So let's move over to the other side. Now I really don't want to get it on the tree. So can I think of something? I've got this post-it note because I need to bring somebody today. So if I turn that inside out, let's just put that on there and see how far we get. And I'll use the smaller of the two, just to get into the nooks and crannies a little bit easier. And that bigger one just for this area. Yeah, that'll be enough. I don't want to overdo it and then go on the trunk itself. Yeah, so I'm gonna dry this off camera, I think, because I don't want to smudge the stars, and then I'll do the little cherry blossoms. I did just notice that the moon has actually got some of these flowers on them, so I'm gonna have to do the moon first. And I'm gonna use some Winsor & Newton ink. Now you do have to give this a good shake. And I'm just using an old brush, and you need to get right into the edges. It's good stuff, this. But again, I'm going to have to wait until this is completely dry, or use the heat gun on it. So I can be quite messy at this point, as long as I stay in the lines of the actual moon. But I'm going to cover the lines up, actually, the black lines. And then be careful around the wing. I just spread this colour out. Clean that off. If I just move it. It's not glistening, it's not glistening, it's not picking up on camera. There you go. Where it catches the light. So that's clean enough now. Whoops a daisy. So that's another medium that we've used. Heat gun. I'm interested to see how much of this is bled through. I've not checked yet. So let me check now. A little bit of the sky, so the Neo Colour 2 has bled through ever so slightly. And the same on this side as well, and a bit of the paint at the bottom here is bled through, but not to worry, you know, it's easy to cover up. So the other acrylic paint that I'm using is Apple Barrel. Now I picked this up when I was in America, and I wish that I'd got loads more colours, but they didn't have many available. And then this is just a cheap acrylic paint from Hobbycraft. So just these two colours. I only need a small blob. That should be alright, that should do the whole thing, actually. And then I will use the back of an old paintbrush. So just to make this really easy on myself, because I'm feeling very, very lazy today, I'm going to go in with the darker shade first, let it dry, and then go in with the lighter shade. Because I'm not about the individual dot by dot by dot. So this is the way I'm going to cheat it. So if you're feeling lazy like me, do it this way. If you want it really, really fancy, the way that Kirsty did it is she went in one by one around each flower, which I can only imagine that took a long, long time. But it did look really, really nice when it was done. But I'm not about that today, I'm not about that life. So this is the way that I'm doing it. It will take a little bit longer to dry this, but that's fine, because it's past dinner time, so I can let it dry while I have dinner. So I don't have to be too patient. I'm popping the colour on and just dabbing it round. I think that pink looks lovely against that sky. And then when we add the lighter pink and possibly a little bit of white as well, just to break it up. I would have used my little dotting tools, but I cannot find them. I cannot find them. They must be right at the bottom of my drawer, or I could have possibly packed them away. I have started packing some of my art stuff away, just in preparation to the move. I suppose you could use a paintbrush for this, but I just don't want the strokes there. I'm going to cover this palette up with some foil as well while I'm letting this pink dry, otherwise that pink one might start drying up. So time to add the lighter pink. Now I think this might be a little bit too wide. That's slightly smaller. Slightly smaller, so that should be okay. And we'll start off with this corner, and it's just the same thing, and I'm doing it quite messy. I don't want it to be in perfect circles, that's not the point. Might have to move to the bigger one. This has been left for about 40 minutes and it's still not dry. Surprised about that. So this layer is getting the heat gun. The heat gun added to it. You might have noticed that I fast forwarded the bit at the end, purely because you don't want to hear dogs barking. Oh, I certainly wouldn't. So I was hoping to get this page completely finished, but with the time that I have left, it's taken me a lot longer than I wanted. We'll see how far we get. I cannot believe that's still not dry. I know it was a thick layer, but still. I'll probably use a cheaper brand pencil as well, purely because the paper's got a little bit more texture now. I wouldn't want to use my luminance or light fast or anything like that, because it will eat away at your pencils, because it's a little bit more rough now. Getting there slowly but surely. Oh, it decides to go sunny now. I might be able to put it outside to dry. Maybe, as long as it's not... Is it windy? No, it's not too bad. The wind the past 2 or 3 days has been crazy. I couldn't have put it outside then, the pages would have stuck together. Let's quickly get this finished off. Let's get it drying. So it went over beautifully, the ink. I didn't have any issues there. That's a little bit. I don't think I want to add any white, especially considering I'm going to have to wait for the drying time. So I'll use the heat gun now. I just had an idea. With the leftover pinks, instead of wasting them, I'm going to add plenty of water. Let me get one of my cheaper brushes. One of these should do. Let's mix these colours together, because we've got a bit of this brown already on the palette. Let's add more water. Let's add this to the hair. Why not? So that's a little bit thick. Let's water that down a bit. We'll have to do a couple of layers of this, I think. Pink hair? Pink hair don't care. I think the pink quite goes actually. So you just saw my brain, or listened to my brain then, working in real time. coming up with that idea. I didn't want to waste the paint. That's what it is. Let's water it down now. We'll have to add more details with pencil over the top of this hair. Just a little bit, mind you. And then my phone goes off. Oh, I've left it over there, I forgot it. I just had my dinner and watched a little bit of Stranger Things while I was waiting for this to dry. Oh, the paper is starting to pill there now, so I'm not going to add any more of that pink. I think with the rest of it, what I'm going to do now is, again, I'll do it as a time lapse, but keep coming back in between, so it won't be a complete time lapse. What about the fish in the pink? I just want to use this pink up. Maybe just a little bit. Who says we can't have pink fish? It's our world. My Facebook is going off. Then I do want to add one thin layer of a white watered down acrylic over the top of where this water is, to give it the look of it's, you know, it is underwater. If you've never tried watered down acrylic before, give it a try. It's really good at adding just bases of colour, especially to big backgrounds as well. I'm going to add a tiny little bit as well to the bird. Not all over, just a little bit. When technically that could be real, because it could be a flamingo. Finally, at the last stages now, this is the bit that I was most nervous about, wanting to add like a thin white acrylic over this area. So I think I'll do that first, and then you can see some of these bubbles. I'll either attempt to go in with straight up white acrylic, or I've got this acrylic paint pen, and I've also got a silver acrylic paint pen, because I was just thinking that little bobs of silver here and there will go because of the silver moon as well. So I'm pulling out a pretty big paintbrush here. So let's get the mixture ready first. I am a little bit nervous about this. I'm sure it'll be okay. So we want our white, and we really want to water this down. We might need a couple of layers, we might not. It's going to mix in, isn't it, with the colours on the palette. Of course it is. It can't be simple, but it needs to be a lot more watered down than that anyway. And the excess that's on this brush, I'm going to clean it off, because I really don't want too much white. Now I'll do a tester in that area, and that seems like it's a little bit too opaque for what I was after. So more water, more water. clean off my brush again. Try and take off all that excess that I can. Right, I think I'm at the consistency there that I want, so let's just go for it. I just want it to be like a fine mist over the whole thing. This is really gonna crinkle the page up good and proper. If I didn't do it enough before, it's definitely I'm gonna do it this time. But when it dries as well, you'll see the effect that I'm going for. So on this side, just load it onto the page, and I'm not pushing down hard, I'm just letting the paintbrush glide across the page. Then all these corners. And I'm going to pop the heat gun on that, and then I might even go in with a second layer. I've just realised as well I put my heat gun away thinking, oh, I'm finished with it now. Apparently not. So whilst it's still wet, I just added a little bit more white onto the palette. And I want to create some lines. If you're thinking, oh no, what's she doing? What's she doing? What's she doing? Just wait. Just pop them lines down. Clean off my brush as best as I can. And just lightly over the paper. So you're barely even seeing that them lines are there. And now start drying it. And I need a separate brush for the white at the top as well. Well, I've got the heat gun in one hand and I'll keep moving it, going in with the white with a little bit of mixture of water. Over the top, where it's just popping out at the surface. Same thing on this side. Go big or go home at this point now. Got all the paintbrush in my mouth, that can move. Right, enough of the white. Enough of the white, I think maybe one more though. I'm terrible, terrible. So I'll get this fully dry. Then I want to add some white dots, just like where the bubbles are meant to be. Just pull it down ever so slightly. The paper at this point really isn't happy about this. But even when I finish the page and I think that it's dry, I will leave it on my dining table to dry overnight. and then when I come to folding it back together, I'll put some heavy boots on top of it, and it usually helps to straighten it back out again. So we're still quite wet, as you can see. So instead of using my little pen, I think I'll do the same trick. Get some of this white, pop it in here again. I'm going to need a new one of these. I do use a lot of this white. And then use the back of the brush and then dab it in places, but this time, instead of it being a little bit messy like it was on the trees, I want to try and keep it as circular as possible, and this will take a little bit longer to dry, as I've learned from them. So I'll just adding these here and there. I don't know if I'll get away with the silver if the paper's still very, very wet. We'll have to see. I think this is the most mixed media that I've done on a Kerby page, I want to say. Please correct me if I'm wrong, if you know any other ones that I've done that I've used a lot more different things, but I think this might have topped them all. Some of the plants, don't forget them. Try and get as many as I can notice, but I won't get every single one. Any more? Can we see any more? A few here. This page has definitely been a labour of love, because it was a double page spread and it was very, very busy. It's a busy page, this, for me to do, so I'm glad that it's done. I'm happy with it. So I'm not going to add any silver, so I think it might be a little bit too much at this point. But I do hope that you've enjoyed the videos and how I will eventually edit this. It's literally took me all day. I started filming at about 11 o'clock and it is 3:15 at the moment. So yeah, it's took all of my day up of stopping, starting, doing other things, waiting for things to dry. The last thing I'm going to do, I did just forget, I just want a little dot on his eye. Come on. There we go. It's not adding it, it must be because of the wax. That's strange. But that is him, complete him, her. I don't know whether it's a boy or a girl, or I have no idea. I have no idea. But I'm calling this complete. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. So there it is, all finished, and I've used Neocolor 2s, watercolours, acrylic paints, coloured pencil, and it's finished. But thank you so much for watching, and if you did watch all 3 parts, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please do subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.